Okay. Yeah, so as I was saying that the syntax of every major programming language is modeled by this context-free grammars, right? So this context-free grammar basically provide the rules for saying that, okay, which program is correct or which program is incorrect, right? According to the syntax of the language. These are formal specifications, right, of the syntax of the language. And then using these formal specifications, right, the compiler, right, which is another program, it's another software, is going to decide, right, that okay, this program is correct, right? It follows the syntactic rules of the language, and this program is incorrect, or it does not follow the syntactic rules of the language. So the theory behind the design and construction of major parts of compilers, such as lexical analyzers and parsers, so we are also going to study that theory as well. So as I said, right, the syntax of the language is modeled by the context-free grammars. But once you have the syntax of the language, you need to write a program, right? You need to write the compiler, which is going to automatically take that syntax, right? And it's going to parse, right, other programs and decide whether or not this program is actually obeying the syntax of this language, right? So this is performed by units such as lexical analyzers and parsers. And the theory behind the design of such units like lexical analyzers and parsers, which are part of the compiler, will be studied in this course. So these are just some examples of the practical applications. There are many more practical applications of the concepts that we're going to study in this course, right? But if you move beyond practical applications, right? So in this course, we are also going to look at the very foundations of computation, right? So in particular, right? So we know that in today's world, right, there are constant upgrades in computing devices, right? So you have multi-cores, like where the number of cores keep on increasing, and then you have GPUs, like graphics processing units, and then you have TPUs. Now you have machine learning, you have neural networks, and so on. Okay, so there are constant upgrades in computing devices. There is a constant increase in the power of these computing devices, right? However, there are still some problems, right, which no computer can solve. Okay, so this means that none of the current computing devices can solve these problems, and not only that, none of the future computing devices will also be able to solve these problems. Okay, so this is a very profound claim to make, right? So this basically deciding the very limit of what a computer can do. Okay, and this is the foundation of computation. There's the limits of computation that we are going to take a look at in this course. So whenever we are developing solutions to real problems, we have to confront these limitations of what software can do, right? Uh, and therefore we have these undecidable problems, right? We have undecidable things, and these are problems that no program ever can do it, right? So if you are so no matter how clever a programmer you are, or no matter how powerful the system is, right? Uh, there is no program or there's no computing system that can solve some problems. Uh, and then there are some problems which are decidable, but these are intractable. So, which means that there are programs, but there are no fast programs. So there are problems for which they are solvable, right? It will take millions of years for even the fastest of computers to solve those problems. So these are intractable problems, right? And so in this course, we are also going to look at both undecidable and intractable problems, right? And so in particular, right, so we are going to find out what is it, right, that what is the model of a computer, right, and why is it that some problems are undecidable, right, or some problems are intractable. And in particular, we look at Turing machines, right, in order to understand the very fundamental limits of computation. Okay. And finally, right, so this course is also going to it's also so you're also going to be studying this concept of abstraction, right, which I believe is a very new way of thinking about computer programs and about computer systems, right? So if we can define abstraction in this way, right? So an abstraction is basically building a mathematical model of a computer system that captures the essence of the system in the simplest possible way. Okay? So whenever we abstract a system, right, we basically strip away all of the details, right? Many of the details, not all of the details, but many of the details of the system, right? In order to build a very simple mathematical model that is going to capture the essence of the system in the simplest possible way. And then we are going to formally, so now this, since this model is very simple, right, and it's also mathematical, we can now reason about the properties of this model, right, in a formal fashion. And that is how we can make the sort of profound claims, right, that I said that we'll make in the previous slide. So when we say that, for example, there are problems which no current computer can solve, and no computer in the future can also solve. Right? So what I mean by that is that we are going to build an abstraction of all possible computing systems, and then we are going to say that, okay, we are going to reason about the mathematical properties of this abstraction. Right? So we are going to say that, okay, this abstract model, right, cannot solve a problem. So there are problems which this abstract model cannot solve, right? And so which means that any other computing system, right, for which this model is an abstraction, such a computing system will also not be able to solve those problems. So this is the power of abstractions, right? So you can model a large number of computing systems, right, with a very simple mathematical model, and you can also make formal and mathematical statements, right, about this models, about these abstractions, and any of these mathematical claims that you make also hold for all of the systems, right, that are abstracted. So in this course, we are going to use formal definitions for these abstract models, and we are also going to reason about the properties of this model purely using these definitions, right? So as I said, these definitions, right, will capture the essence of the model, the essence of the actual system, right? So that we can then strip away most of the details of the actual systems. We can just work with this formal and abstract models, and then we can reason about the properties of this model, right? Purely on using the definitions, the abstract definitions that we have defined. Okay? And in this way, right, any claim or any property that we prove for this abstract model also holds for the for all the actual computing systems, right, that are modeled by this abstract. And we'll also learn how to actually formally prove these properties. So are there any questions so far? Okay, good. Uh, so now that we have sort of motivated, okay, so there is a question that what exactly is a Turing machine, right? So we are going to look at the details of a Turing machine later, right? But so in some ways, a Turing machine is sort of an abstraction, right? So it's the abstraction of any other computing system, right? So it's an abstract model which basically represents any other computing system. So that any property that you prove about a Turing machine also holds for all other computing systems, right? So even before real-world computers were developed, right? So this was in the 1930s. The theory of Turing machines, right, was developed, right? So before any actual computing systems were developed, we already knew, right, that what are the limits of a computing system, right, or what are the problems that a computer will never be able to solve. Any more questions? Okay. So now that we have sort of motivated it, that why is it that we need to study this course, right? What is interesting about this course and so on? Let's look at some more details, right, of this course and what is it that we're going to study. So let's take a close look at the name of this course, right? So this course is named Languages, Machines, and Computation. So languages and machines are two parallel and independent ways to understand the foundations of computation. So as I said, for the motivation, right, for this course, that we're going to look at the very foundations of computation. But there are two separate ways in which you can look at the foundations of computation. So these are languages and machines. So let's look at both of those a bit more carefully. So what's a machine? So a machine is an abstract model, right, which captures some fundamental aspect of computation. Right? So as I said, we are not going to be looking at real world computing systems, right? But we're going to abstract most of the details out of those real world computing systems, and we're going to build this formal mathematical models, right, which are abstract models. So abstract models will be called as machines, and we are going to basically reason about the properties of these machines. Okay, so in particular, we will study the following three major classes of machines. So we'll study machines with finite memory, which are called finite automata. We'll study machines with finite memory, but with an unbounded or infinite stack. So these are called push-down automata. And finally, we are going to study machines with unrestricted memory, which are called Turing machines. So the abstract models of machines are basically parameterized by how much memory is present, right? So if you only have a finite amount of memory, which you can read and write from, then this machine model is called a finite automaton. If you have a finite amount of memory, right, from which you can read and write from, but you also have a stack which is unbounded, right, which is infinite, then this class of machines is called a push-down automaton. And finally, if you have an infinite memory, right, from which you can arbitrarily read or write from, then such machines are called Turing machines. Okay? And each of these machines is basically an abstract model. It's going to abstract out specific classes of real-world computing systems. Okay? Now, let's also look at this concept of a language. Right? So, what is a language? So we have been using languages ever since we were born. Right? So, we study languages in our schools, right? Languages is how humans communicate with each other. Okay, uh, so if you take a look at the English language, for example, right? So the English language has a finite number of words. Right? So it has, first of all, it's a finite number of symbols. Right? So this is the alphabet of the English language. This is from A to Z, and then there are finite number of words in the English language. Right? So even though this set keeps on increasing every year, right? But it's still finite. But there are an infinite number of sentences that you can create out of these words. Uh, however, if you just so what's a sentence, right? So sentence is a collection of words. Now, any arbitrary collection of words is not a sentence. Right? So if you just jumble up any words together, then it's not a sentence, right? In the English language, right? So there are rules, right? So these are the grammar rules of the English language, which decide, right, that okay, this collection of sentences, right, or this sort of sequence of words is a sentence, and this sequence of words is not a sentence. Okay, and a language is precisely that. So a language is basically a set of strings which are formalized by grammars. So you can think of a string as a sentence, right? So a string would basically be a collection of words, right? Or it would be a collection of symbols in general. Okay? Now, any collection of symbols is not going to be it's not going to be a valid sentence, right? So there are grammars, right? Or there are rules of the language which are going to determine that okay, this collection or this sort of sequence of symbols, right? Or this sequence of words is a sentence, but this sequence of words is not a sentence. Right? And these are the grammatic rules, right, of that language. Right? And what we'll get is a set of string. Right? So a set of strings which will be all the correct sentences in that particular language. Right? So for example, for the English language, you have a set of sentences, right, which are correct, right, which obey the grammatic rules of the English language. Right? So this set is infinite, right, it can be, but the grammatic rules are finite, right? So there are only a finite number of rules, right, of the English language, and if you obey those rules, then whatever sentence you create is actually a valid sentence in the English language. So language is basically a set of strings. Okay? And so all the languages, right? So we are going to be looking at a formal. So we'll look at this concept of grammars and languages more formally, and we'll see that all the languages, right, can be divided into this Chomsky hierarchy, right, which is a hierarchy of language classes with increasing complexity. So so there are three classes of languages, right? And as you move down these classes, the complexity increases. There are right linear grammars, there are context-free grammars, and then there are unrestricted grammars. Okay. So when I say that the complexity increases, right, I mean that the grammar rules become more complex, right, and they basically allow more sentences, right, to be created. So we will take a more closer look at the Chomsky hierarchy as well. But so the question arises that why exactly are we interested in languages, right? So as I said, right, we want to study the foundations of computation. So we want to study what is it that a machine can and cannot do. But then why are we interested in languages? So the reason is that this problem of deciding whether a sentence belongs to a language, this is a very strong correspondence with computation. So in particular, right, so let's say that you are given some language, right, so you're given some grammar rules, right, and you want to decide, and you're also given some sentence, and you want to decide whether or not the sentence obeys the grammar rules. Now, in some ways, this is the most fundamental problem, right? In the sense that if you can solve this problem, if you can decide whether or not a sentence belongs to a language, then you can solve any other problem. So, which means that if you can build a machine, right, which can solve this problem of deciding whether or not a sentence is correct or whether or not a sentence belongs to a language, uh, then you can solve any other problem. So that's what I mean when I say that this is the most fundamental problem. Uh, and and as it so happens, right, that we have seen three classes of machines, right, each with increasing complexity, and we also seen three classes of languages, right, each with increasing complexity, and there is a strong correspondence between these three as well. Right? So in particular, uh, the finite machines with finite memory, right, which are modeled by finite automaton, can only recognize languages which are in this class of right linear grammars. And similarly, machines with finite memory but in an unbounded stack can only recognize context-free grammars. And similarly, machines with unrestricted memory, right, which are Turing machines, can recognize languages which are in this class of unrestricted grammars. Okay? So again, right, so we are going to be taking a very close look at all of these concepts, right, later on. But I just want to sort of give a very high level summary, right, of what is it that we're going to study in this course. Okay. Uh, so are there any doubts or any clarifications? Okay, good. So let's move forward then. So let's look at some administrative details right now regarding this course. Okay. So the lecture timing. So this is so this course is slotted in slot number D. Right? So we'll have lectures Monday at 11 a.m., Tuesday at 10 a.m., Wednesday at 9 a.m., and Thursday at 1 p.m. So the classes will be live, will be online on Google Meet. Right? So I hope that I have included everyone who wants to take this course right on Google Meet. Right? So if you have some friend or anyone right wants to take this course but doesn't have the Google Meet link, then please let me know. Or you can share the link as well. So there's a course web page. Right? So this is the link to that course web page. You can also go to that link if you visit my home page. Right? So from my home page you can also go to that link, or you can just click it from here. Okay? So the course web page is going to contain links to lecture slides. So I'm going to be using slides, right, uh, in the course, and all the lecture slides, right, are going to be so the links to those lecture slides are going to be uploaded on the course web page. Similarly, all the lectures will be recorded, and so the video lectures will also be uploaded. The links to the video lectures will also be uploaded on the course web page. So typically this will happen after the lecture within a couple of hours. I'll try to do this within a couple of hours, but sometimes I may also be late, but it will definitely be done before the end of the day, whenever that lecture was completed. There's also a course Moodle page, right? So I don't have access to that yet, but I hope to get access soon. So all the tests and the practice problems, etc., they will be uploaded on the Moodle page. Okay. There's also a course Google group that I have created. So this is the name of that Google group. Uh, so again, I have included most of you on that Google group, but if any of you are not part of this Google group, then again, please let me know and I will add you. Okay. So the reason behind this Google group is that this is an online class, right? So you will not be physically in touch with each other, right? Which means that so you cannot discuss things, right, physically, right? And therefore, I encourage everyone, right, to please discuss things, right, on the Google group. Right? So you can post questions, doubts, clarifications, right? And I'll also take a look at them. The TAs will also take a look at them, and other students, right, will also take a look at those. And then you can sort of discuss these things online, right, on the Google group. Okay. Okay, so let's also look at the course outline. So this is a standard outline. There's also present on the official on the web page, right, for the CSE website. Right? So the CSE website contains the syllabus for all the core courses. Right? So this is the same syllabus. Right? So this course is broadly divided into three parts. Right? This corresponds to the three sort of classes of machines and languages that we have seen. Right? So in the first part of the course, we are going to be looking at finite automaton and regular languages. And so we're going to look at how to model these finite automaton, right? What are regular languages, and some properties, right, of this machines, right? Also some properties of finite automaton and regular languages. So in the second part of the course, we are going to look at the second class of machines and languages, which are push-down automaton and context-free languages. So again, we will formally define what are these things, right? And again, we will look at properties of these machines and languages. And finally, the third part of the course, we'll look at Turing machines and computability. So this is the third class of machines, right? And so it's in this part of the course, we'll look at the fundamental limits of computation, right? So look at problems which cannot be solved by any computer. And we also look at the theory of NP completeness, right, which is the theory of intractable. So this is the sort of brief outline of the course. So course evaluation, right? So this is only tentative, right? So it's yet to be approved by the class committee. But this is what I plan to do. Right? So we will have bi-weekly tests, right? Most likely on Moodle. So this will be held every 15 days, right? Beginning from the second week. So there will be total of 6 tests. So the total percentage, total sort of weightage of this bi-weekly tests is 30%. So there, since there are total 6 tests, we'll have 5% weightage per test. Okay. So the reason behind this biweekly tests is just that I want to continuously sort of see, right, that whether or not people are following the concepts that we're going to study in the course, right, and to make sure, right, that people get enough practice during the course itself. Okay. So that's sort of the primary motivation behind having this biweekly tests. And finally, we also have this end-sem exam, which will be a paper and pen exam, right? So I don't know how exactly this is going to be conducted, but the institute is going to decide it, and then we will follow whatever rules the institute decides. Okay, so most likely to be the same way that it was held for the previous courses, right, in the last semester. So this end-sem exam is going to have a weightage of 70%. So regarding attendance, I won't take attendance. So it's not really practical to take attendance for online classes. And but that said, right, so since this is an online class, right, and since you are not really going to be in contact with your peers, right, so therefore I encourage everyone to attend all the classes. Right, so if you attend all the classes, then or at least try to attend all the classes, then that will really help you. Right? So since you won't be studying from others, right? So you have to sort of maximize your opportunity, right, to study as much as you can, right? And attending classes, right, and asking questions during classes is one way to make sure that you understand all the concepts, right? So you can always go back and do the video lectures, right? Watch the video lectures, but if you want a sort of an interactive feeling, right? If you want to ask questions during the classes, or if you want to ask clarifications, doubts, right, then that's only possible if you actually attend the live classes. Right? So I understand that there are some limitations that some of you may have, right, regarding the net connection and so on. Right? But so that's why I won't take attendance. But please try to attend as many classes as you can. Okay? And so regarding the biweekly tests, right? So again, right? So please, so I haven't written anything formally down, right, regarding copying and plagiarism, but again, right, so I expect everyone to work on these tests on their own, right? And so this is only going to help you. Right? So the weightage is very low, and if you actually do these tests on your own, right, so you'll get valuable practice, which will help you in the end sem exam. Okay. Yeah. So that's all I wanted to say regarding copying and plagiarism. Okay. So are there any questions regarding the evaluation? Okay. So you can always ask me later, right? During the office hours, or you can also post it on the Google. So textbooks, right? So there are 3 textbooks. So these are the same 3 textbooks that are there on the official course webpage, right, and CSE website as well. So there's a textbook, Automata and Computability by Dexter Cozen. There is a textbook by Hopcroft, Motwani, and Ullman. It's called Introduction to Automata Theory, Languages, and Computation. And then there's this textbook by Michael Zipser, on Introduction to Theory of Computation. Okay. So I strongly encourage everyone, right, to get access to at least one of these 3 books. Right? So any of these 3 books is fine. Right? All 3 are very good books. But please get access to at least one of these 3 books, and please read these books, right, as we do the lectures. Right? So I'm actually going to post uh, links, right, to the appropriate sections and chapters corresponding to the lectures. So if you read these books, then these books go into much more detail, right? So they're going to explain some of the context, some of the concepts in more detail. There are going to be more examples. There are going to be figures. There are going to be exercises, and all of this is going to help you to understand the course material, right, in a better way. So yeah, so that's all I wanted to say regarding the textbooks, right? So please get access to all of these textbooks, and please read them regularly, right? As we do the lectures. Right. And finally, I want to say that so I'm going to be using the lecture slides, which are based on Jeff Ullman's slides for the course on automata and complexity theory at Stanford University. Right? So even though this is not an exact copy of those slides, right, so I'm going to be making changes to them, but these slides are based on his slides. So that's what I'm going to acknowledge. So right, so we are going to end the today's lecture right there. Right? So uh, thank you all for attending the lecture. Yeah, so there's a question regarding course TAs, right? So actually, this TA assignment was just done yesterday, right? So there are going to be course TAs, right? So we have around 10 or 11 TAs, I think, and I'm going to be and I will assign specific groups of students, right, to specific TAs. Right? So the TAs are going to have their own office hours, right? And you can and groups of students will be assigned to a specific TA, right? And so those students can ask questions, right, to those TAs. And I'm going to be adding details of the TAs in the next lecture. So, uh, but since it was only decided yesterday, right, so I couldn't quite fit that information. Okay, so there's another question regarding taking best 5 out of 6 for the biweekly test. Right? So I'll think about it. I'll think about it. That's also another possibility. Any more questions? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So yeah, so we will see, right? So we need to think that there may be connection issues for some students. So that's correct, right? So yeah, I think we will do that, right? So let me just think about it, right? And I'll let you know whether or not we'll have best 5 out of 6, right? But it seems like that's the more better option in order to combat this problem of yeah, variable net connections. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So any more questions? Okay, good. So that ends today's lecture, right? So we'll start with the course material from tomorrow. Thank you.